Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us at the October Economic Development Council meeting. Stacy is not able to attend, who's going to chair this, so I'll do my best to fill that role. So I'll call the meeting to order. And before we get started, we do have a resident online. Commissioner, could you allow John to talk? I just wanted to see if Mr. Reagan had any public comment that he'd like to share.
John, you are available if you want to talk. You just need to unmute.
You're still muted, John. Okay, well, John, if there is a comment you'd like to make, I believe that you've been what's called allowed to talk in Zoom lingo. So, just let us know if you have a comment. I see your hand is raised, but you'll have to unmute. Okay. Well, again, if you have a comment, just unmute yourself and be happy to hear what comments you might have. Moving on in the agenda, the August minutes, those were sent in an email. So if you'd like to take a moment to review those, and then if we could have a motion to approve or amend, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Seth. We have a second.
Second.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that. All right, moving on. Mobility. A couple of developments in the mobility bucket. One, most importantly, related to two things related to the potential active transportation plan. One, I did make a presentation to the commission at the discussion session on Tuesday, and I think it was received well. It was very high level. Really just wanted to set the table as we go into the budget sessions, which are coming up very quickly, just to make sure that the full commission, the entirety of the commission, were aware of what an active transportation plan is and why Mount Lebanon. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen here and share with you some of those talking points. And again, keep in mind, this was a high level discussion, so I wasn't, looking to get particularly too much into the weeds, but just wanted to make sure that we had a level field of understanding. So can everyone see the talking points? I see nodding heads. Great.
Yep.
So I won't read this verbatim, but I'll just kind of, the way I organized the talking points was, again, high level, what is an active transportation plan? Excuse me, why Mount Lebanon? And then getting into a little bit of the comp plan, and then budget and partnership. So I'll try to run through this quickly, just so that you understand what I was trying to have the commission understand. So, I just kicked it off with the notion that, for a century or so, as a society, and this is globally, we've developed auto-centric transportation, and active transportation looks to level the playing field for other modes of transportation. So I was trying to find a snappy way of kind of surmising what active transportation planning can do. And in my mind, it's a level set for, again, other modes of transportation above and beyond just the automobile. So I then bulleted that out into explaining what that could mean. Obviously, we know walking and biking, scootering, but also wanted to bring up the notion, wheelchairs are also a part of this. And scootering isn't just what happens on college campuses, but there are folks that are elderly. My mother's quickly becoming one of them that needs to use a scooter. She can't walk for long distances, so she finds herself on a what I'll call a scooter to get around. So it's really taking into account all forms of transportation that don't involve just an SUV or a car or truck. Again, balanced and equitable transportation system that dials back into what I was just mentioning about ADA modes of transportation, and also folks that may not be able to afford an automobile. Discuss that. Discuss that an active transportation plan, pardon me, creates a blueprint for creating a safe, connected, and efficient community-wide active transportation network. And then I dialed in a little bit to what that means in practice. So policy recommendations, funding strategy recommendations, targeting infrastructure projects, implementation priorities. And I think that's an important one because, as we're aware here in Mount Lebanon, we've been hearing a lot from residents, not just through the comp plan, but outside of the comp plan, asking for traffic calming. And rather than having a shotgun approach, the active transportation plan gives us a great opportunity to look at the entirety of our transportation and road networks and sidewalk networks, and how we prioritize implementation. And then also, I think very important is performance measures ought to come out of a good active transportation plan so that we know that we're hitting the marks that are developed. So I just gave some very tangible performance measures. This certainly doesn't capture them all, but I wanted to give something to folks that may not live in this world or think or have done the research on this as much. So things that, again, you can touch and understand. So, bike shares near transit, things like that. I just wanted to give people some ideas of what some metrics could be. There's many more, but I, again, just wanted something tangible for the residents and the commission to understand. Also highlighted that a good active transportation plan is community source. So, I wanted to articulate that, we're not just going to bring in some subject expert that dictates what we should do. They should really be a Sherpa and a guide to the community as we go through the planning to get us to a well-executed plan, and that it's a living document. It's clear that transportation is evolving rapidly. The example I used again was scooters. If you've been to a college campus recently, scooters are have taken over the bike in terms of college kids getting around. But you're seeing more and more folks using that, and that really wasn't such a thing 5 or 10 years ago. It was really sort of a bleeding edge way of getting that last mile in, whereas now it's really become sort of an accepted form of transportation and not unique or odd. So an active transportation plan should be designed and built to be fluid and living, so that a community can adopt and adapt to, I should say, the changing landscape. So that was sort of the high level of just components of an active transportation plan. And I wanted to get into why Mount Lebanon ought to consider something like an active transportation plan. And then again, just the bullets here, Mount Lebanon has grown organically to be at human scale with sidewalks in many places. And we ought to capitalize on that. But we are inherently an active and dynamic community already. Anybody that looks around sees lots of folks walking their children in strollers and otherwise, biking, jogging, walking, all of these things. So it's already sort of in the DNA of the community. So again, capitalizing on that. The good work of the EDC in the past year with the development, creation, and ultimate acceptance of a complete streets policy at the commission level, which is already bearing good fruits with the conversations we've had with PennDOT and Dormont. We can talk about that more later. Again, a roadmap to capital improvements so that we have a total look at the community, and we're executing things strategically. And then I mentioned that the comp plan tells us so. And I have more getting into the comp plan. It hasn't been released yet. It's actually about to very soon go into a 45-day public comment period. So I'll be sharing that with you. But a little advance information is telling us that, again, and this was known in 2013. This was in the comp plan in 2013, and 10 years later, we're seeing it again. That people are very interested in public safety, pedestrian safety, school children's safety, all of these things, walkability, so forth and so on. So it's in the it's already being baked into the comp plan. It's already had a very robust response in those areas. And you can see here, I pulled out some of the notions. There's more to this as well. But again, this was a high level. I had about 15, 20 minutes to do this presentation, so we couldn't get too deep. But you can read the bold there as I take a sip. So these bold points are some of the priorities that were identified by PASHIC in the active transportation plan. So considering, you can read everything here, I can read through it, but if you can all see this on your screen, you can see that these are some of the notions that rose to the top, which all fit squarely into an active transportation plan, which then led me to where the rubber hits the road, pun intended. Everything comes down to dollars and budgets. So, we are again getting into the budget season, budget sessions. And I put in for $80,000 in the 2024 manager's recommended budget for an active transportation plan. That was based on information that was provided to us by subject experts who do these plans for a community of our size. We have put in a grant request to USDOT, Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhood Programs, with a $100,000 grant request. We should hear in the spring of 2024 if we've been successful with that. We have had letters of support that I'm aware of from local elected representatives, both at the congressional level and state level. So we're hopeful that we'll be successful in obtaining that grant. And I think an important thing to bring up is that we've also had discussions with Dormont, who are equally interested in these matters and are equally willing to put up financial resources to work with us on an active transportation plan, which is critical. And you can see there's a little typo here. But, we share a lot of major intersect points. Our communities are very dialed in, and northern part of Mount Lebanon is very connected with Dormont. Primary arterials, sidewalks, our commercial districts, kiss one another. It just makes good sense. Plus, everybody likes to see, especially in a politically fractured place like Pennsylvania, and especially Allegheny County, where we have so many municipalities, multi-municipal partnerships. So we are exploring a partnership with Dormont on our active transportation plan. So that's in a nutshell, what I had the opportunity to discuss with the commission. I don't know if the commissioner would like to say anything further or share what his impression was of how the full commission felt about it.
I'll just say that I think, at this point, you were preaching to the choir. I think everybody's a firm believer that this is important. Again, especially bringing in Dormont and building a shared journey on this topic is going to be important. But again, commission is very much supportive of this. We are hearing it constantly. people want sidewalks, people want speed bumps, people want more walkability, more bikeability. It just, you know, on and on, right? This is a consistent topic, and I don't think any commissioner, you know, is saying, no, I'm not hearing that. So I think it's really just a question of you know, moving the ball as quick as we can. Yeah, and again, I always go back to, you know, for me, yes, there's safety is paramount on this topic, but I'm a firm believer that this is just as much an economic development and value of property, private property, residential properties issue as well. If I can improve the public right of way to be more effective in utilizing that space to promote community by reducing the space that is completely dedicated to cars, I am driving, you know, value for our businesses, value for our residents, yeah, and driving the overall value of the community, attracting the next generation. So I think everybody's on that page at this point. Again, there are always subtleties, but that's why we do, you know, this active transportation planning process. This is complicated, right? I mean, we've got a built out system. This is not, you know, new development, right? We've got, you know, this has all been built out for a long time. So piecing this together is not going to be simple. Nothing is cheap. And there's only so much money. So how do we do this as effectively as possible? I think that's really where an active transportation plan is really going to help. I'll just say I was at an event last night and I had a conversation with the lady from SPC who is in charge of active transportation planning for the region. She was excited to hear that we were doing something, offered to help in any way she can. So again, I think the region in general is seeing this. And they are recognizing that this is really important. Whether it's trails, you know, whether it's, you know, modifying existing cartways, you know, everybody's recognizing the value of this. So I think it's really a question now of how do we accelerate it? And frankly, I want Mount Lebanon to be in a place where we are leading it. You know, we need to stay ahead of our neighbors. I want them to come up, but I want to be ahead of them. You know, so yeah, that's kind of the short of it for me.
Great. I see Anna has her hand up. Anna, please.
I'm supportive of a complete streets plan. However, there was a comment made that we were already built out in Mount Lebanon. I would argue that we are vastly underestimating how many sidewalks are still missing. So before we spend too much money partnering with our neighbors, I just want to make sure that we take a really close look at where we currently are. There's considerable budget constraints that we're facing. There are plenty of requests that are in. And so I just want to make sure that before we're spending too much funding thinking about how we're connecting with others, that we take a look at our own house. Thank you.
Absolutely, Anna. Absolutely. Point taken. Any other comments or questions from?
Eric, I just had a question on the budget considerations. Those are separate from Dormont, or is the intent to seek out a full 180K internally and then have that 100 be reimbursable to 80, or can you just talk about a little of the budget components there?
Yeah, well, the 80,000 is strictly and solely for Mount Lebanon. So that's what that is. So that's not looking at Dormont. Dormont would have to provide their own funding. We had a meeting with council folks from Dormont as well as their manager, Ben, and they're ready to come to the table with whatever dollars they need to. This is a high priority for them as well. And we want to work in synergy while they're working on a plan and we're working on a plan that we work together to create those connections.
And I just want to, you know, Anna's comments are not wrong. You know, there's certainly areas that don't have sidewalks, but I think that's why we've identified this in the complete streets policy. The network, which is active transportation plan, is a network overview. Where should we be prioritizing funds because budget is limited? You know, where should we? Because you can build sidewalks everywhere. You know, if we had to do it over again, we should have built sidewalks everywhere in these, but that didn't happen. And so now, how do you retrofit in the right ways, in the fastest ways to spend the money in the right fashion. So those network connections do move beyond the municipality. A lot of folks get on at Dormont Junction, the T, they go through the municipality. Our sidewalks to there, our connections to places beyond where our people are already moving are broken or limited. So I think it really a holistic network look is critical, and I'm really looking forward to the process. So excited to hear in the spring, but excited to get going prior to that. So any help you need on our end, I know we've had good conversations across the board and want to keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be more to come, but all those points are well taken. And again, it is that holistic look. I mean, obviously my role in this has to do with economic development, but with that being said, I'm not naive, and clearly, our schools and the safety of the students and residents getting to other community amenities and assets, schools, parks, commercial districts, obviously, which is what I'm selfishly interested in. All of those things. That's why this plan is so needed. And so we're not, in my opinion, this is just me speaking as staff. I'm not speaking on behalf of the commission per se, but just that we're approaching projects strategically and well planned and well thought out, so that valuable funding resources are allocated responsibly. And I think we've been doing a good job of that, and this will only help us continue down to be even better. So, but we got to see if it gets funded. There's this is going to be one of the tightest budget years that I've experienced in my 15 years here. So there's going to be a lot of good projects and a lot of needs and a lot of things that are going to be balanced. They're going to have to be balanced in the next number of sessions. So we'll see where this goes, but we're hopeful this will find its way to being funded. So more to come. And then as those budget sessions come up where this would be relevant, I'll be sure to let the council know. It's always good to be there when we're representing projects that we think are of value. Any other comments for the order before we move on?
Eric, this isn't directed to active transportation plan, but like, I don't know if you have the answers to it, but when a project comes forward and is evaluated by planning commission or others, we don't really, there's a process that it goes through the planning commission, but projects have come forward that haven't really been evaluated on that economic development proposal or either rejected. And when I keep hearing tight budget year, there's been decisions in the last 3 to 5 years that have resulted in no development of certain nonprofit properties or other properties. But, I think the commission needs to be not understanding that they've allowed decisions to be made that have directly impacted that budget, that they could have made different decisions along the way. So I'm just curious how we develop or evaluate those development proposals, running the numbers. And I don't know if planning commission does, they're evaluating based on the zoning or the saldo rather than that economic development component.
I actually also have my hand raised when you're ready.
Well, let me just say, I'm not on the planning board. That's Ian's shop, but I think my impression and understanding of it is they are looking at strictly at zoning and saldo with some economic, I would hope, consideration, but I'm sorry, Anna.
One of the comments that you made was that this is a comprehensive plan. And so part of a comprehensive plan would be that you and your colleagues on staff would be coordinating really closely to make sure that we avoid what Seth is talking about right now. $180,000 is a lot of money. It's a really great sidewalk project. So I just want to make sure that before we're spending money on planning, that we're actually thinking about how we're articulating and how we're addressing the other budget concerns when we have safety issues that are happening every single day.
Point taken. Any final comments? And just making sure I don't see any other hands raised. Okay, great. Well, thanks for all that input and taking the time to hear me out on what the presentation was. I appreciate that. On the economic vitality, we are complete with the design guidelines. That is complete, done. Check is not just in the mail, but deposited from the grant. So we had hoped to present, and when I say we, the partner, Mount Lebanon Partnership, it was their project with assistance from the municipality, obviously. But you know, they were hoping to do a presentation this past Tuesday. That was not able to happen, so that will be on a discussion session shortly. But again, just to recap that very briefly, this is a facade toolkit for improvements to facades in the Uptown Commercial District. So it offers best practices for facade renovations, offers a resource guide, all sorts of things to help property and business owners, as well as the design committee for the partnership, evaluate projects for those that might be seeking facade grant assistance, either locally or through the Commonwealth, who has a facade grant program through something called Keystone Communities. So that package is done. It's well executed. I'm very excited by it. If anybody's interested in seeing it, I can share that document with you. It was designed to be user-friendly with not a lot of architectural wonk speak. So it's really designed for a mass audience, so that people can understand what would be necessary to apply for certain grants. So it doesn't come with any, there's no ordinance passed by this. It's really a carrot, not a stick. It's if you want some grant money, you would need to adhere to guidelines that were established through this process. So that is complete. We are working on the scope for the second phase of planning for Vibrant Uptown, which again is going to have a different name. Just trying to find what the appropriate language is. And just so folks understand this is really looking more at placemaking. It's looking squarely at placemaking, motifs for Clearview Common, how to elevate Parseway, which, you know, is right now a service alley, but it's also a primary connector, you know, to our light rail station, and some other smaller nodes where we could elevate the streetscape for activating for events and various other things. So it's a small grant and will be a small planning process, but we're going to be kicking that off at the beginning of the year. So we're working on the scope for that. Vibrant Uptown, just to wrap that up, we're pretty much complete. The railing in front of the building is still on back order, so we're now hearing that'll be in the next few weeks. That'll be punched in. They're doing some punch list items. There were some areas that the contractor did some work that really wasn't up to snuff. So they have a phenomenal supervisor right now. He's very talented and the best we've had. And so he's been really taking care of some things. And so you'll still see some small scale concrete patch improvements, things like that, but that's wrapping up. So we're slowly putting that project in the rear view mirror. But you will still see Plavchek out there on occasion, finishing up some punch list items. But the street infrastructure is primarily in. The trash cans, recycling bins are on the street. You know, so we're pretty much wrapped up with that. Commercial district updates. We've had a lot.
Hi, I have a question. I have my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, I have a lot of questions this morning. So thank you for having both the blue and black trash cans. I'd be really interested to understand what the success rate looks like for those, whether it's actually working. I believe that it will. I'd like for it to, but I'm just really curious if we're tracking things like how much of the recycling is actually happening like we hope. Is educational signage needed? Because that is a thing that we talked about early on, which is you actually have to tell people what the difference is At least now they can say it's either a recycled item or a regular item, but people have issues understanding that signage is helpful. We don't have any signage currently.
There is on the cans, it says landfill and recycling.
Right, but what it actually means to be landfill, right? So a cup, if it's waxy, is not recyclable. Whereas if our vendors and our the storefronts are actually in alignment, they would be sort of adjusting their purchasing to work with that. So there's like a two-part education. Like, for example, are the coffee houses providing things that are recyclable? So that's actually the second half of the recycling issue that we have in Uptown. The other question is, we made considerable changes in terms of water use as well as electricity use. So we have the different lighting scheme, we have the different watering scheme. Did we put measures in place so that we can start to see what our savings on water are, if there are savings, or our savings on electricity for lighting in Uptown? Do we have things separately metered so that we can start to see? And then the final question is, I know that there were significant overruns, right? Because that particular vendor was so delayed, and that there was a cost per day for the delay. I'd love to see how much money that was, how many days they were delayed, and where that money is going. So, if they were delayed for however many, what happened with all that funding? Did it go into the project in a different way? Was it reallocated to a different kind of project? So I'd love some just accountability behind the scenes on some of those things in terms of our resource use.
Yeah, the lighting and the irrigation system are metered. So Public Works would probably, I would imagine, have access to that type of information on that front. In terms of an education campaign, dialing back to the first point, I think that that's something we can work with Public Information Office, and certainly myself always, tries to encourage businesses to make appropriate purchasing decisions that work both for their bottom line and the bottom line of the earth. And many are doing that. Many are responsible.
Well, I think there's a sustainability person right now too. So we're sharing half of the cost of that person's salary. So it seems like a logical that it's not just public information in terms of savings, for example, or the recyclability, but we actually have a person who could be held at least half accountable for that.
Correct. No, that's very, very good point, Anna. I agree with you 100% on that. Yeah, the metering point, and I'm sorry, you had a third point. I apologize.
So recycling, education, separate metering, and then how that information, and then the cost overrun and the use of that funding.
There are liquidated damages. We're still in the process of working out through some of that stuff. So the wash is not complete yet, if you follow me. So we're still this is going to be a process. There are liquidated damages, as you can imagine, and other facets to be considered. So we're going to be diligently on that, and are now that things are wrapping up, and final draws are being done, and our solicitor is very much in the mix, as well as upper management, and the commission has been very dialed into this. There's more to come, I guess is
right.
what I'll
So
say.
I'd love to ask for transparency on that point, because as we're asking for $180,000 to partner with Dormont, I mean, that's a really nice place for that money to come from if there was a cost overrun, if it were kept in the same department, or if there was a way to do a line item around that. So I'm just asking for some transparency and appreciate your partnership on that.
Not a problem. All right, back to the commercial district updates. We've had a lot of really great news just in the last couple of weeks. So on Washington Road alone, we had 2 grand openings in 1 week. La Pizzetta has opened up where Damos was. So if you haven't had the chance to go visit them, please do. They are open for business, and everything I'm here. I have a standard rule. I don't visit a new restaurant at least for 2 weeks to a month. I'm not suggesting you follow my policy, but everything I'm hearing is that it's excellent, and so please do check them out. That's La Pizzetta at Bedamo's. We have had a new retail shop open up called Bows and Bones. That is a what I'll call a boutique pet shop. So they sell everything from doggy sweaters to toys to food, all sorts of things. So that's a phenomenal new business that we're excited to have on the street. We're always looking for more retail, and we've had some great success with that. Everything from Golden Beetle that opened up earlier in the year to this. So that's very exciting. PNC has been leased. That is also going to be retail. I'm not sure if I could specifically, if it's now if I can go public with the name of it, but it's a what I'll call a high-end retail tailoring shop. So we're looking forward to welcoming that business on the avenue. Vinyl Remains is expanding into the storefront beside them. Vinyl Remains is a record shop. The expansion will be called Vintage Remains, and will be what I'll call a curated home furnishing shop, really with a focus on late 60s to maybe mid 70s home decor. Yes, it's back. No, they don't have shag rugs or love beads that I'm aware of, but they have a lot of vintage stereo equipment and lighting features, things like that. So we're real excited to see that open up very shortly. Off of it, this also is not. I'm also working with another business that's very much in the sort of economic sphere. It's also a retail shop. It's probably premature to really get too much into it until a lease is signed. But you know, I'm pretty confident that something will be executed shortly. And we'll be able to make an announcement. But it's something I'm very excited to see come into Mount Lebanon's sphere. It's the type of business right now you have to either go to Squirrel Hill or Point Breeze for. So those of us that don't necessarily want to take tunnels and bridges and whatnot to visit something like this shouldn't have to do that much longer if everything goes through. But I'm kind of teasing what it is, but they've been at some farmers markets and they've built up a client list, and they're now ready to take the next step. So we're real excited to see that, and hopefully by our next meeting that'll be finalized and we'll be ready to go. I was hoping to have an update on the West Banco branch, excuse me, on Beverly Road. I've been in contact with the property owners there. They had some final sort of exit details they had to deal with the former tenant being West Banco. They were ironing that out in the last few months. So I know we'll see where that's at. I don't really have much to update on with that at this current time, but I anticipate we'll have something to announce shortly about Beverly Road in terms of that vacancy there. I don't suspect it'll be vacant for very long. So any questions about any of that? Okay. Sort of I think an important thing. I've been asked to sit on a panel by the governor's office on economic development for traditional downtowns such as what we have. So I'm very honored and pleased to be able to contribute in some small way, hopefully, to how the Commonwealth starts addressing economic development relative to what I'll call main streets for shorthand. Traditionally, Pennsylvania's economic development strategy for main streets has been throw a few $1 million out of the DCD budget at them, and then that's the end of it. And then we hire a technical assistance agency, and then that's the end of it. Well, I'm hopeful that through this panel discussion, because the folks that have been invited are folks such as myself that represent Main Street, traditional downtowns. that they'll take some of the feedback that we have. Some of the feedback that I'm preparing to share is that, we have a lot of older, and I'll use the word again, vintage. We have a lot of historical buildings that were built long, long before the current world that we live in. And so they're quite dated in many, many ways, in terms of accessibility, in terms of technology, in terms of, you name it. I mean, if you go to the upper floors of many of our commercial buildings, it could be 1961. So, we've always been hopeful that there would be some assistance provided to help property owners update and convert these properties, either for commercial, office, or residential, but they need to be updated. Electrical systems are poor. I mean, I could go on. So that's one of the key talking points that I like to bring to the table is, we have a lot of infrastructure, we have a lot of inventory of space already existing in the Commonwealth. Let's rehabilitate that. And that has an economic development impact, obviously, but it also has an environmental impact. More of these existing buildings, the most sustainable building is one that's built, and that's a bit of a trope, but it's true. And we have a lot of existing buildings that, with appropriate updates, could be brought back online and be beneficial to our downtowns. So that's just one of the talking points. But we have an hour, so we'll see where this goes. But it's the beginning of a new economic development strategy for the Commonwealth. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that folks like me have been invited to the table, because it's normally more blue chip and larger type companies and organizations that are invited to have these discussions. So just the fact that there'll be a mic on folks that are representing smaller footprints is encouraging to me, at least. So I'm hopeful. We'll see where it goes. But so that session's coming up next week. Way more local. And I'll send this electronically, but there is a networking event. Andrew, you're the only one in the room, so you can grab a piece of paper if you'd like.
Got it.
But there's going to be an autumn uptown business mixer. We had to put these on hold, obviously, for obvious reasons. So we're looking to bring that back. And so this will be the first one we've had since probably 2019. It will be at the Spring Hill Suites Marriott. That's Thursday, November 9th. It'll be from 5 to 7:30 p.m. Again at Spring Hill Suites in Uptown. It's being hosted by the Mount Lebanon Partnership. Municipalities involved, obviously, but this is the partnership is taking the lead on this. So it's just an opportunity. There'll be some brief comments, but but it's really meant to get folks back in a room together. And we have a lot of new businesses up here. We really do. And a lot of these folks are not dialed in with sort of the elders of the street, and they may not know all the players and all that type of thing. So we're getting back into the swing of that. So this will be the first one in quite some time, and then we look to hopefully do this, if not quarterly, at least twice a year, to bring everyone together, to talk in a casual manner. Again, some brief updates, some conversation, some speakers, but it's really meant for people to work around the room and shake hands and get to know one another. So if you're able to attend, I'd love to have you, and I'll send out this to the EDC so that you can attend. There'll be members of the partnership there. I expect to be there, and I think that'll be a really nice event. Any other questions? Any comments?
Eric, are the mixers open to just the businesses, or EDC folks can join if they're available?
I would like the EDC to be there. I mean, it's really meant as a business mixer, but the way it takes a village. I mean, we're all involved in economic development. So, I mean, it's really meant for the small business owners to get to know one another and meet each other and meet the partnership, who is the Main Street organization of record here. But the Economic Development Council clearly plays a big role in that. And at a different level, clearly at a much higher level than what most small business owners are probably candidly interested in. But it's important that they hear, why some of these issues that the council has taken up may be relevant to them. The average small business owner, and I'm making assumptions here, which is always a bad thing, right? But I'm going to do it anyway. Most small business owners probably don't either know what an active transportation plan is or why it should matter to them. So they may have a question about that. So I think having a council person around that could talk about that would be great. And also, they may not even know there's an economic development council. These folks are, people have to keep in mind, these are small business owners. So, their primary responsibility is their family and making sure that business doesn't close. So they're not always, as dialed in as one might think or they can be. So these offer opportunities to let them to see the big picture. So yes, I would love to see the council there. And there'll be some light snacks and refreshments. Totopo actually is a great business neighbor.
Okay,
It's
man.
always generous. So Totopo, I think, is providing the snackies. And then my understanding is Spring Hill Sweets, why it's not my understanding, they have a small little bar they've opened up in there. It's it's really meant just for a beer or a cocktail when you're waiting for someone to get ready to go somewhere else. But I believe that'll be open. So if somebody would like an adult beverage or a soda, that's available too. So it should be fun. We've had really nice turnouts in the past. So it'll be interesting to see, this being the first since COVID, since pre-COVID, we'll see how the turnout is. But we're going to keep doing it. Any other questions from anyone? John, even, I know you've been on here. I'm not sure if you have any comments after hearing some of the presentations today. If you do, just unmute yourself, and happy to answer any questions or you have. And if not, that's fine too. I know some people just like to listen and observe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, well, the final thing I'll say then is next, believe it or not, we're going to be in November. It's shocking to me. Time does move faster as one gets older, but here we are in November. So our normal meeting would be on Black Friday. Probably not going to work out for most of us. I know I'm not going to be here. So we usually move that meeting up a week. So that would be November 17th. So please check your calendars and let me know if that works for you. If it doesn't, we'll try to make arrangements or adjust accordingly, or we'll try to figure it out. Again, just as a reminder, as next year, come April, it's, the boards and authorities are going to be different. So I'd like to spend some time in November as a council, having you guys discuss economic development priorities that you'd like to see the next iteration of this body take on. Whether or not that group takes it on is beyond me. I don't know, but I think it would be a good thing for us to leave this new body, whomever it might be. Some of the faces on this call might be on that group again, and that's great. But we may have brand new folks on deck. And some of the things we've been working on, quite frankly, are going to sweep over to a completely different board, such as mobility. It's going to really have its own pillar, its own umbrella that'll be working those initiatives under. So, but we're charged with economic development currently, and I'd like us to have some discussion about that, where we'd like to see that go. So to try to help facilitate that, if you guys are comfortable with it, I'll probably send out either a survey or just some basic questions, just to kind of kickstart the conversation, at least from a staff perspective. And candidly, as an economic development professional, that's what I do. Kind of kickstart some questions, or at least just kind of frame it so we're not working out of a vacuum. Of course, I'm always eager to hear unsolicited thoughts and concepts. So if you have some ideas or things that you want to advance or would like to discuss, let me know. But I'd like to take some time out of each of our meetings moving forward, discussing that, so that when the next iteration in April takes over, they have an idea of what different priorities are and things that we've been working on, things that we would have worked on if this realignment wasn't happening, if you follow me, which they can then consider, because it's going to take some time for these new groups to get their sea legs and figure it out. Maybe not. I could be wrong, and I hope, but generally when you have something like this, it'll take a couple months to figure it out. So if we can leave them with something, I think that would be beneficial for everyone, just for continuity's sake at least. So I think at the next meeting, maybe we spend some time on that if everybody's in agreement with that. Cool. Well, if nothing else for the order, the Boo Parade is this Saturday. If you have you have little ones, or even if you don't, it's a good time. It's actually probably the biggest event we do up here in terms of bringing out families, that's for sure. So that's 11 a.m. if you're interested. We have a pretty robust parade. It's nice to have it back again. We didn't have it last year, so it's nice to have it back. Yeah, and then we have an Uptown Market and holiday thing on December 9th, but I'll talk more about that at the next meeting. But we do have some holiday festivities planned as well, so lots of good stuff. So if there's no further questions, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second Anna.
Very good. Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate your time, and have a safe and wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Eric. Feel better.
Good day, everybody.
Good one.
Bye-bye.